Hey there, everybody. Welcome to Horsepower Heritage. My name is Maurice Merrick, and thanks for all the great messages this week about the podcast. So apparently you guys really enjoyed last week's Hot Lap episode about the long-lost Lamborghini from the Italian Job, because I got more messages about that episode than I have probably any of the others. Anyway, I'm glad you liked it. You guys are awesome, and I love hearing from you. And don't forget to follow the show on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss anything. And we're also on YouTube, by the way. Not every episode, but quite a few. Also, if there's a subject you want me to cover or someone you'd like me to interview, hit me up on Instagram or go to horsepowerheritage.com, and there's a way to get in touch with me there. If you listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, please leave me a 5-star review over there. It helps out a lot. And don't forget to tell your friends about the show. All right, so if you're a regular listener, you know that Horsepower Heritage leans heavily toward classic cars. But that does not mean I'm not interested in modern stuff. And my guest today is a good example of that. His name is Arash Farboud, and he's the guy behind Arash Motorcar Company, which is an ultra-low volume builder of what he calls hyper-duper cars, which I love. That's fantastic. They built the AF8 and the AF10, which are mid-engine and packed with technology. But they also have a simplicity that I think is missing from a lot of other exotics. I interviewed Arash over Zoom from his factory in Newmarket, England, which is just north of London. And the whole time, he and his team were working pretty intently on getting a new chassis completed. So you're going to hear some background noise in this episode. So just use your imagination and picture an immaculate workspace with white walls and a pretty much empty floor and a tube frame and carbon fiber skeleton in the center of the room. And during our conversation, Arash moved around the factory and he pointed out his various carbon fiber tooling and cars in various stages of production and that sort of thing. In fact, picture a NASA building and you'll have the right idea of what his factory looks like. It's always a bit of a risk to do an interview like this when we're talking about stuff that you can't see. But you can go to arashcars.com and see these amazing machines for yourself. And that's ARASH cars.com. Okay, enough intro. Here's my interview with Arash Farboud right here on Horsepower Heritage. Let's hit it. Arash Farboud, thanks for joining me today. So Arash Cars builds small production hypercars and supercars.
Yeah, correct.
And how many cars do you build per year?
On a good year, we're probably going to make 3.
So it's a highly exclusive product.
Yeah.
You're in this for 20 years now. Did you go to school, become an engineer, and decide this is the direction you wanted to go?
No, I'm trained as a geneticist, and I studied business and genetics at university, but primarily business. So I'm not really trained as an engineer. However, I've been developing carbon fiber structures for 15 years and electrical EV systems. You know, there's not many of us around. So that's an unknown technology that I'm pushing the boundaries on. So even if somebody had it as a training 10 years ago, it'd be out of date. So I'm essentially a guy that will make as much effort to learn new techniques. I'm not doing normal techniques. So moral of the story is you don't have to be a trained engineer. But even if you go to university to do it for 3 years, you're going to learn some things, but you're not going to learn everything there. You're going to have to just do it.
Did you just hire people that knew what they were doing and you kind of were the orchestra leader? Is that how?
A bit of everything. So I think I've kind of evolved into this situation through, I think you start off with Lego and then you start off with like model airplanes and cars, and then you do the, car restoration thing. You buy a racing car and do it up. I'm probably 20 years old by then, and then you might want to try and build your own thing. And that's what I did. I'm just the guy that kept going.
In some ways, you're the kid that never really grew up, but your toys just got bigger.
I was probably always ahead of the curve, and the cars I always wanted to buy didn't exist, so I had to make them myself.
Right.
So I was always maybe 5 or 7 years ahead of the curve. So I think when I started out, there was no such thing as a hyper-duper car. So I made a Le Mans sports car.
It's very imposing. It's long and low and wide, and it's a very distinctive design. So tell me about that car.
It's a car that I went to see win Le Mans in 1998 and said I'd make one for myself. It's a Porsche GT1 98 car. Won Le Mans. I loved it. So I made one for myself.
So that car was kind of how you learned a lot of things.
Yeah, I learned everything. Wings, aerodynamics, carbon fiber structures, engines, gearboxes, packaging, launching it at the Autosport show in 2001, dealing with suppliers, dealing with people, doing my accounting, testing, driving, failures, heat, turbos, ECU systems, everything. It taught me everything. So I did it. I did one and I learned how to do it. And then I did another one and another one. And just learned a bit more. So the self-taught engineering, I think that's how the other independent car company guys have done it as well. Be careful what you dream for because it can come true. And that's exactly what happened. It was very, 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 still by far the most extreme thing I own. It is very, very light and very fast and very low and cool doors. It's really, 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 really extreme. So yeah, you kind of want to do something that you enjoy, and that's kind of where it went. And it just continued. So I did a sports car, then a hypercar, and then did another sports car, and I'm doing another hypercar today. Very blessed. I work hard, don't get me wrong, Maurice. I work really hard. Pretty happy to get stuck into anything, but I just do what I can within my means and pull in the people that are really great. So yeah, I think after 21 years now, it's the next chapter. But a lot of these car makers go through cycles to get to where they want to be. And I'm in that curve. So you hit a maturity point, you understand how to make things, you know where things fail. But it's a little bit more strainy for me because I don't just make a petrol car, I make an electric car. Right. And this one is electric. So there's a lot of tech in this one. This is like, it is the complete fantasy Sid Mead style Star Wars rolled into one plus 10.
This one goes to 11.
Every level. This is 11. Yeah. Like Spinal Tap. This is 11, probably 12.
Yep.
Definitely. And we don't really understand the physics on this one. Well, I understand the physics, but you've got to validate the physics because the physics are so obscene. It's great. Everyone wants more, right? More.
Absolutely.
I like more. More's good.
Hey, Arash, are the guys taping something?
Yeah, there's a lot of background noise. Yeah, I can move somewhere else. You're in the middle of something exciting.
I know.
You're literally you're literally a storm in a teacup, if that's the expression. But yeah, they're doing these some parts I've been making. Yeah, these are lightweight tooling. They're basically fast tooling. So if you want to make something real quick, we do it like this using an MDF board. If you want to do super cool tooling, you have to do it on tooling block, which is this one.
Gotcha.
It's a wing mirror mold. So it's 10 layers of carbon. You can see.
Yes.
And it's polished. So this is the rear wing for a hypercar. Can you see that?
Yes.
That's quite a heavy. I mean, that took 6 weeks to make. Nice. That's tooling block. And if you want to make a proper tool, I mean, that's still reasonably light tooling. If you want to do pro tooling.
Why would you use carbon for the tooling? Why not aluminum? Or is it just quicker?
The tool in aluminium would be a lot bigger and it'd be 2 parts. Be quite heavy to manage. It's a bigger investment. So if we want to make a change, then you can't really do it in aluminium. You'd have to send it back to the tool shop. So I would avoid it. I would try and avoid it. So Formula One cars aren't made that way because we'll only make 2 or 3. Once you make 20, then you move to aluminium tooling. I wouldn't do it for what we're doing to start off with. I mean, the chassis, you couldn't do that in aluminium tooling. With this technique, you'd have to go to this one has a carbon tool, and that's really, really, really strong, and it's very intricate. So the process is to make the chassis is not possible with an aluminium tool unless you're going to make 20,000 of them a year, which is similar to a resin infusion.
I'll be right back with more Horsepower Heritage. Don't go away. Today's episode of Horsepower Heritage is sponsored by Model Citizen Diecast. And if you like scale model cars, they've got a special deal for my listeners. Whether you're looking for race cars or street cars, they've got something you'll like. In itty-bitty 1/64th scale, all the way up to the ginormous 1/8th scale masterpieces from the Amalgam Collection. You can see it all at modelcitizendiecast.com. And when you use the code HERITAGE at checkout, you'll get 10% off your order. Limitations apply. Model Citizen Diecast, because your inner child still wants to play with cars. And now back to my interview with Arash Farboud, right here on Horsepower Heritage.
I don't think you can do something great without pushing the boundaries. It's a combination of hiring a group of students, engineers, suppliers, just trying things out. It's a bit of everything, really. There's no rule book, but it's really a case of just doing it. So this is our Hypercar AF10.
So let's talk about the AF10. Give me the specs on that car.
Well, I mean, this car, you can have it in multiple guises, but in its top form, it's a supercharged V8 with 4 electric motors by Compact Dynamics. So it's 2020 horsepower, varies 220 kilowatts per motor. Those are older motor designs. We're at 600 kilowatts per motor now, so we've tripled our power. Our battery pack then was only 8 kilowatt hours. We're at 100 kilowatt hours. Petrol engine is producing sort of 800, 900 horsepower. So we've pushed the boundaries in 4 years by a long way. Actually, this is a different version of the hybrid. This one is actually a V12. So this one's being prepared for a special run of 10 vehicles. But yeah, there are various iterations of it, which is really exciting. It's like the finale of the AF10 petrol cars before there's one other version of this. So there's a number of models coming out over the next few years that are really, really exciting, and various combinations of engine configurations and electrical systems.
So V12 gas electric hybrid.
10 of them will just be V12 manuals. I think there's going to be a V12 electric hybrid. Obviously, our new pure EV hypercar will be coming out shortly. We have the AF8, which I've got some chassis here, the GT car. AF8, we have got one in the in Bay 1 being prepared for this year, and we have one customer car coming back for its service. So we don't make many cars, but it's like my toolbox. I don't have many tools, but it's a nice toolbox, and they got great tools. And I don't have many, but they're really nice. They're all masterpieces, as I call them.
Let's talk about those chassis behind you.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Design.
Yeah, these ones here. Yeah,
So
these ones.
That doesn't look alien to me. It looks like basically a tube frame chassis, but I'm sure there's a lot more to it.
Yeah, that's one. This is the bare chassis. So it's all tubes. Piece of art. It's all tubes. There's very little. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 small 4 box sections. So it's built like a skeleton, human skeleton. It's all round tube strength, and then this one has the panels in here are carbon fiber. So it's a hybrid chassis.
Once you get the panels in, I imagine that stiffens it incredibly.
Yeah, it's one step away from a monocoque. So AF8 was supposed to be, and it still is, the entry into the Arash Motorcar Company brand. So we try and reduce the complexity and cost as best as we can by offering a metal and carbon hybrid. The reality is it's more complicated than making a carbon tub, weirdly. So it's perhaps more premium than a carbon tub in terms of the amount of energy required to do it, and its artisan features to it. So it's our sports car in our range. So we have 3. We have a sports car, we have a hypercar, and then we have an EV hypercar. Basically, we can't be just pure EV at the moment because still the massive demand for a petrol hybrid system, but we offer the full range at the moment. I think it's going to be quite a while before super sports cars and hypercars are just pure EV, and that's it. But we're able to offer the spectrum. Very lucky.
That tube chassis, that's all steel, right?
Yeah, that's steel.
So naked like that, how much do you suppose it weighs?
All our chassis only weigh about 85 kilos. Okay. They're pretty light.
And then, of course, all the carbon, you get the benefit of rigidity and strength, but you're adding lightness.
Yeah, we can't make panels in any other way than in carbon because it's strong and light, and its tooling cost is a lot lower and time. So this AF8 here, it's got carbon panel work, and the air boxes are carbon, air intake boxes, plenum seats. These are made by Sparco, especially for us.
Nice.
This is the roof panel. There's no limit for AF8. There's no expense spared, as in we have the best of everything: the braking system, the gearbox, the chassis, construction, steering wheel, the seats, the wishbones, the cooling system, the ECU, the dash system. There's no compromise anywhere for every model that we make. It's whatever you can dream of, we're doing it. Whatever is the most premium item that we can put on the car, it's going on the car. So, you've just seen the chassis for AFX. There's no compromise there whatsoever. We're using the highest quality materials throughout, from titanium inserts, carbon inserts, honeycombs in aluminium, rower cells, glue films, glue splice, core splicing, 24 layers, unidirectional carbons for strength areas. It's an F1 car plus one.
Let's talk about components. Where do you source your engines, gearboxes, etc.?
This is an older car, so this has got a Chevrolet-based V8 and a Graziano gearbox. We've moved. F8's moved to a new generation V8 engine, which is more than likely to be a turbo.
Have you ever supercharged anything, or is it turbo is the way to go for you?
We supercharged the AF10 hybrid launch model. We love supercharging. Brilliant. But turbos is a lot more. We're finding a lot more power with turbos. A lot more power. Less stress on the crankshaft, and less stress on the turbine shaft of the supercharged. Better cooling capability as well. So we prefer turbo. A bit more complicated though. Heat. A lot of heat with turbos. 3 engines. Twin turbos, 3 engines. Supercharged, 2 engines. Each turbo is an engine. The gearboxes are from Cima. We've moved to Cima for all our gearboxes that are manual. Sequential gearboxes are Hewland, an English company. The EV car is our own gearbox and our own motor and our own battery pack. So essentially, we have evolved away from off-the-shelf componentry because people don't want it and they don't like it, to our own powertrains, our own braking systems, our own interiors, our own management systems. For 2 reasons. People don't like having something off the shelf. We were running Chevrolet engines. We're not doing that anymore. Whatever can be machined or manufacturing carbon fiber will do. The engines are becoming more and more bespoke for us now. So the next generation of AF8s will be our own V8 turbo. That's what people want. They like that. They want more power. They want something higher revving, and we can put it on our own ECU system. It's much, much easier to manage for us. And when you're spending that much money on an item, you want it to be 100% bespoke. So it's a pretty exciting step. The V12 engine as well, it was our own V12. We developed it 2 years ago. So yeah, it's a lot of worry about, is it going to be reliable? Yeah, of course it is. We're managing it. It's got stronger bits in it.
Nice. What kind of power is that V12 putting out? I think you said 800?
Yeah, I think it's about between 700 and 800.
Okay.
We're going to do 10 of those.
Nice.
That's going to be cool. That's going to be really cool.
Now, Arash, do you build your cars to order?
Yeah. We'd have to do it that way.
I mean, that seems to be make the most economic sense.
Well, they're going to be north of £1 million, and they all have very specific interiors and details. So yeah, we have no choice but to make everything bespokely per customer.
How many cars have you built to date?
I think we've done 78. I'm in that life cycle of where, the car companies, some of them did a few models and then they stopped and did another model evolving. And, those early models are very, 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 very valuable. And it doesn't quite make sense what we're doing, but to the buyer, it makes a tremendous amount of sense because they know they're getting something very, very special that they're investing in. And they know in 20, 30, 40 years time, there'll be a great investment. Plus they're enjoying them as well. So it's a nonsensical business in many ways because I'm used to making millions of parts in my other company I've been working with. But this is the total opposite. It's as few masterpieces as you can get away with. You get to a point where some models, they become really, really attractive and people want 20 of them or 30 of them. However, we're physically unable to make more than, 10, 15 vehicles a year out of this facility. We'd have to move to another facility. It's a pretty big facility, but that's all I'm physically capable of doing.
Well, obviously, your place in the market and you're sticking to it.
Yeah. Small numbers. It's almost like a life of an artist.
And the cars are 100% hand built. How many man hours do you suppose goes into a single car? I mean, it probably varies from car to car, but ballpark.
12 months 5 people.
And is that the size of your team? You have 5 full-time guys?
We work normally on 6 people per project. It's normally per team for a build is 6 people. For assembly, you've got manufacturing, which is different, and it increases and decreases. So at the moment, we're just concentrating. Today, numbers are a bit low because of COVID, and the number of people here today, there's a few people working remotely. So it's only 6 of us here today.
So how do you go about testing the cars?
So testing is normally done for petrol cars. We go to a place called Millbrook. It's like a Disneyland for cars. You have testing for high speed, alpine circuits, going up the hill, down the hill, ABS runs, brake tests, emissions is done locally here before it goes off to a bigger test. Obviously EV, we don't have that problem anymore. We do localize running around as well on the road. If it's a road car, you need to test it on the road. So you do the elementary stuff at Millbrook, which is an old GM facility. It's not too far away from here. And then you can go on to the normal road, and then you can go on track. But, track work, it's expensive. When it goes wrong, things go wrong. You try not to do it that way. So Millbrook is a much safer place. Millbrook is a very famous test facility, unbelievably famous. Everybody goes there. All the James Bond movies were filmed there. I've been going there since I was 20 years old.
Who test drives the cars?
The last 2 test drivers, James Wood is our Goodwood, friendly to prototype test driver, and Nikki Faulkner is our high-speed Goodwood as well, general test driver as well. You just call him up. Nikki, can you do this? Nikki's one of the Stigs from Top Gear, and James Wood is one of the most famous prototype racing test drivers. He runs all of Nick Mason's cars. He did the Apollo IE. He's a family member to us, so he's the guy you ring up. But we have other test drivers come in and do their little thing. We have Robbie Kerr coming in testing, and we've had Rob Huff. Anybody local, let's come over and have a drive. Everyone has a go. It's great. That's what it is about driving for us. But for me, it's more about engineering and building and making stuff and designing. It's not my highest priority. So the drivers it's their higher priority. So we work with them to do that bit, and they'll report back. Generally, they all come back with the same thing, which is we make a very fast racing car for the road. Generally what comes back. No one ever complains about speed. No one complains about grip. No one ever complains about traction or dynamics. Normally, the only weak point in our car company is the NVH, noise, vibration, and harshness. They're quite noisy and visceral experiences. It's is what we set out to be, and so trying to dampen things down and quieten things down is not really in our DNA. So that's the only thing that normally comes back: noise, vibration, and harshness. We're not very good at it, and we don't want to be very good at it. We just don't want to. We like to feel everything.
Well, I think at a certain point too, in order to mitigate those factors, you've got to put stuff in the car. You got to put sound deadening. You got to your interior furnishings change. And suddenly the car weighs another 400 pounds.
Air conditioning is a big problem for us. It's very complex, takes up a lot of room, a lot of air boxes. So for the new EV car, we're trying to hopefully, and I'm pretty confident we will eliminate it. I think we have. The cooling's in the seats. It'll be in the seats. So you reduce your packaging, you reduce your complexity, so you can focus on other really important things on the car. So yeah, it's easier to put it in the seats for us than having big complicated boxes for a hypercar. So that's one thing we've been working on. Heating and cooling is near you rather than away from you. Okay, you like to have a gust of cool air, but that's what we're trying to avoid at the moment. We're trying to evolve our problems into positives rather than negatives, and trying to change car processes that most people don't want to do because they don't need to, but we have to, because we are always pushing the boundaries. We are all about pushing boundaries: performance, manufacturing, design, engineering, solutions for the driver and passenger. It's a big job, but we love it.
When you're testing, stuff breaks. What did you find in the course of your testing maybe that was interesting regarding the durability of components, or sussing out the weak points? I mean, is there any event that you can think of, like you had an unexpected failure on the track, or something didn't perform as expected?
They're usually silly little things like wires not being clipped on and they get hot, or bottles of fluids getting hot. It's usually to deal with heat. That's our biggest concern, as always, for petrol cars.
I think that's a testament to your development process, right? I mean, you did the work ahead of time.
We have had some weird things going on, but you're gonna. And if you're not, then you're not pushing your development program, testing your parts enough. But we're pretty brutal. I mean, there's a lot of videos of our cars being thrown around test tracks and donutted and sliding and power sliding and going backwards. And we do as much as we possibly can. Cold weather testing, yeah, we've done some of that. Hot weather testing, Goodwood is really tough. Hot engines, lots of people there. We always do very well. We had one incident with that Goodwood where a car got hot at the top of the hill. We dealt with it and it was back running in the morning, did all its other runs. It was fine. You can't always predict. Hay bales is bad near turbo engine cars, so we try and avoid any of that with our turbo cars. We've got a few turbo cars. The GT and the GTS are turbos, and we'll be moving to the V8 turbos, possibly a V6 turbo for the LM. There's a lot of discussions on the LM coming back in a slightly modified guise with a V6 twin turbo. Maybe a Porsche engine, but it's unlikely because Porsche won't like it.
So FIA certification, are these cars ready for racing?
No, we don't have an FIA. So FIA would you do a specific car. So like Jim Glickenhaus's car is doing Le Mans. His car has had a frontal crash test, and so it should, because it's doing some big speeds with pro drivers around a circuit, and it's kind of the prerequisite to get on track. We don't have an FIA certificate for these cars. If we did, we'd have to make some adjustments, some minor ones for the front crash box, most probably. That's about it. I would have thought the new AFX would pass most LMP2 spec, because the front crash box is amazing and the rear crash box is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. It's not critical for us, but it's something we're very happy to do. But obviously, crash testing is very expensive to do the cars, and it's not necessary. So the cars that we'll be sending to America wouldn't need them. They would be under the show and display rules. They are extreme cars for sure, but it's you in control of the car. So if you're doing big speeds and you're doing it in silly places, we'd want to make sure the driver and passenger have got everything they can to cope with that incident. So the seat belts, the bracing, the seats, mounting points, front crash structures, side impacts, rear crash structures, all of that sort of stuff.
So obviously the car industry is in a major phase of disruption, because a lot of people talk about EVs like they're the future and the only future. I think, we're going to have hydrogen, we're going to have EV. So where do you see things going?
I think we kind of set up a space development program over here, very lightweight development, working out what we could get the car company involved with, some structures and some fuel cell tanks. Maybe we do a frontal cockpit for governmental use. So I think we would be continuing in the bespoke supercar, sports car market, but probably evolve into the space arena. It's a natural progression, probably not aviation. It's quite established. Focuses more on space exploration. So it's something we discovered 2-3 years ago. We talked about it, and it's in our program.
Wow.
Because we're pushing the boundaries.
That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I mean, we're colonizing the moon very shortly, and Mars is high on the agenda. So there will be vehicles and craft demand. It's happening. 6 years ago, would you have an electric car? You'd say no. So my prediction is more effort will be on vehicles and craft for space. And, we're used to dealing with very low volume, high performance devices. So I would say that's where we'd be ending up as a parallel company.
People can find you at arashcars.com, ARASH.com. Check out the model, the AF8, the AF10, and kind of learn a little bit more about the company.
Thank you. And we're on Clubhouse, as you know, every other night.
Yeah, for sure.
Enjoy me here.
God
right, bless you, Maurice.
Thanks for joining me today. It's been fun.
All right.
Cheers.
God bless you, mate. See you later.
That's all for this episode of Horsepower Heritage. If you like what you've heard, follow the podcast, leave me a 5-star review, and if you want to get in touch, drop me a line at horsepowerheritage.com. Until next time, I'm Maurice Merrick. Thanks for listening.